if I have to be honest with you guys, I kind of fucked up. G'day fellas, welcome back to MotoringBox. On today's episode, I'm going to be throwing some new fuel injectors into my AU Fairmont Ghia. And why am I doing that? Well, this car has a bit of a cold start issue where it just takes, like you go to start it, the first lot of cranking and you can just crank it forever, it doesn't start. Second time you crank it, it will start, but it doesn't start very cleanly. So, you know, I've changed the fuel pump on this car. I've also changed the fuel filter, and both of them were really scungy. And I've also replaced a lot of other things on this engine too. I've replaced the idle speed controller. I've replaced the PCV valve. It's got a new one in there now. What else have I done? I've done spark plugs, I've done leads, I've done the core pack block, which is underneath this whole intake manifold. I've done the intake manifold gaskets, which you would have seen in a previous video. I know it's unrelated, but I've also done a thermostat. I've done a whole lot of things. I've done the crank angle sensor, which is down the front there. That's apparently another potential cause of a car that's difficult to start. But yeah, none of it's really fixed it. So yeah, look, I think dirty injectors might be a potential cause of the problem. If not, well, it's going to be good to have a fresh set of injectors in here anyway. So yeah, I know I probably should have got a scan tool and connected it to the car and see if there's any codes on there that would help me out, but yeah, I've just sort of been throwing parts at this car instead. Not that I really care, because it has been running better with every single little thing I've done to it. So yeah, even if, heavens forbid, the injectors are not the cause of this difficult starting problem, it will be nice to, you know, put some new injectors in this thing, because the ones in there, I don't know, it's a bit hard to tell whether they're stocked standard or not. They probably are. So yeah, I'm just going to throw a new set in. You could get the existing ones cleaned if you want to. To me, for the cost of $100 for a set of new ones, I reckon getting the existing ones cleaned probably would have cost that much anyway. So let's just go with the new ones, shall we? So what I've got is, I just bought some no-name ones off eBay. These are 250cc injectors. I've got a set of 6. From what I could tell, they seem to be a little bit bigger than what the standard injectors are on this car. But from what I've read online, you can throw 250cc injectors into pretty much any 90s or single overhead cam Ford 6, and the ECU can work with it. I've never actually replaced a set of fuel injectors on any car before. So yeah, I am not an expert. I'm just a simple guy in the garage giving it a go. It should just be a matter of undoing the bolts for the fuel rail. So I can see there's one here at the front, and I believe there's only one additional bolt, which is down the back here. I know there's some additional ones. There's an additional 2 here. So there's 4 in total. Once it's unbolted, from what I can tell, there isn't really any other way these injectors are secured apart from like this little C-clip thing. Should be a matter of just removing the little connectors, unclipping that little clip, and then it should pull out of the manifold, and then it should pull out of the rail as well. So let's get these cracked. I am tempted to remove the throttle body because it would make access a lot easier. I guess you could take it off and just put it back on with the existing gasket. I don't have a new gasket for that at the moment. Would be nice to have a new one if I was going to do that, but Considering I only replaced that gasket recently, I could probably just get away with it, with reusing it. So yeah, if there's anyone out there watching who's thinking of criticising my work, have at it, because I'm not an expert. As I mentioned, I've never done this before. So we're learning together. You know, you got to start somewhere. Think back to, if you are going to criticise me, think back to when you first replaced some injectors on whatever car it was. That's pretty much the level I'm at right now. But together, hopefully we can get it done. And that bolt should be coming out. Got it. So, there shouldn't be anything else holding that rail in. It's just, I'm guessing, hopefully it's just the injectors. So, yeah, they're coming out. Can't see any fuel yet, but I'm guessing because the injectors are closed, there won't be any. Okay, it's that way. Gotcha. Let me get my pliers. I do not want to lose this thing, so I just got to try and get it off the connector. And then put it aside, because yeah, you're not going to find this thing if you drop it. Bent that slightly, but I can just bend it back. So we've got to keep them somewhere safe as well. I'm going to stick them over there. Hopefully there's nowhere they can go. No. So yeah, I'm going to repeat the same thing. I'm not going to show you all of it, but basically it's removing that little clip, pulling off the part of the wiring harness there, and then you also have this little metal kind of circlip thingy. Circlips are usually the circular ones. These are like a square C. That came off really easily. So I'll be back with you in a second. Alright, I've got the metal clips off that hold the injector to the rail. I've still got some of these connectors plugged into the injectors, but what I'm going to do is pull it out and I'll see if I can, like, obviously you can pull this injector out hopefully fairly easily, not too much fuel. So you know, you can't really tell from the outside how dirty it is. So now that this injector is out, yeah, it does give you a slightly better look at that little circlip thingy. So try and get a flat blade under there and flick it out on both sides, and then the connector comes straight off. I will say the hole leading in here is bigger on the old ones, but like, I don't really know if you can make much of that. The new ones obviously look really clean. The old ones look a little bit like there's a bit of scunge on there, but obviously they're still working. You just don't really know how well they were working. So to install injectors, I've been watching a couple of YouTube videos, which is funny because I'm a sort of a YouTuber myself, but I do find it is obviously the best way to learn. And people always use Vaseline, so that's why I've got a bottle of Vas here. Because you're meant to lube up the upper and the lower, or the lower and the upper seal. Instead of just ramming them into the hole, you need lube, of course. That's so true for many different situations in life. When you're trying to put a shaft into a hole of some kind, it just goes better with lube. So that's what we're going to do. Cool. So I guess what I'll do is I'll just have to basically put the injectors roughly in place and then try and push the rail onto it and bolt the rail down to try and make sure they're properly connected. So let's break out a bit of Vas. Do I want to use my glove? Maybe I'll use my pinky. How much lube do I need? That's probably too much. As long as it's got a decent coating, I imagine it'll be all right. That's the trouble, I always go for too much lube. And then you sort of, I don't know, it sort of works against you. You want to keep it away from where the fuel's going, obviously. You don't want to block anything up. Imagine the fuel would probably dissolve it in a way anyway. So we want the connector obviously facing out, and they were roughly on that sort of an angle to allow the loom to connect in. So every single one should be roughly like that. And I guess, yeah, for now we'll just push the lower tip of the injector into the hole, and then we'll come back to refit it to the rail. You know, I really hope, I said this in the last video, but I really hope this fixes my issue. When I was doing the intake manifold gaskets, I said the same thing, and in a way it did fix some of my issues. It just didn't fix all of them. The way this engine is running at the moment, it seems to be running 100% from what I can tell. Some people reckon it's down on power because the 0 to 100 time on a crap road surface, which affected the takeoff a little bit. It was 8.8 seconds according to the speedo. Ford quoted, I think it was 8.2 seconds. So yeah, look, the car is 20 years old this year, so you can't expect it to achieve a factory fresh quoted 0 to 100 time. So yeah, I reckon it's running the way it should. It just doesn't like starting for some reason. So I don't know, I don't know much about fuel injectors, but I know that the spray pattern is a big deal. If fuel is just kind of dripping out in big drops, it doesn't sort of burn the way it should. It needs to come out in a fine mist in order to achieve combustion. So I don't know, like if the injectors are dirty, would that mean perhaps on startup it takes them a while to get flowing? I don't really know, because it doesn't seem to be down on power when you're on wide open throttle. So yeah, it's very curious. But to me, a new set of injectors couldn't really hurt. And then get that lube off my hands. It's not where you want it. You want it on the shaft. And then you should just be able to make sure all of the injectors are sitting in the fuel rail openings. I imagine it's going to take a bit of force to get all these seated. So let's start ramming them in there. First two are in. It's a bit hard to get leverage or like pushing force on the remaining ones. But I imagine if you just start bolting this back down, it's probably going to do the job for you. I don't want to damage this rail. I don't know if it's what sort of strength it can withstand, but yeah, it seems pretty strong. Just trying to push it onto the injectors. So again, I'm not doing up these bolts tightly yet. I'm just winding them in until they start to bite. And then I'll come back at the end and torque them all down. At least access is actually pretty good in the end. It's everything's readily accessible. Removing the throttle body would have made removing these injectors here in the middle a little bit easier, but it's definitely not required. I'm glad I didn't remove it, just because it's going to add time to the job. So what we have from here, we've got the metal sort of circlip or C-clip connector which holds the injector to the rail, and then we have this little thin wire ones for the for putting the wiring loom connectors back on as well. So this looks relatively simple. The this circlip, I'm going to call it a circlip. This these two lower edges here go into slots which are on the injector, and then these slots here on the side match up to the edge here on the fuel rail. So it's just a matter of, I think, of turning the injector till the slots line up. Yeah, there we go. And then we can turn that back around to where it needs to go. So we just need to do that 6 more times. Right, so basically all 6 injectors are in place. The fuel rail has been bolted back down, so they are pushed into the manifold, they're pushed into the rail, they're clipped onto the rail. The last thing I have to do is reinstall the connectors to the wiring loom. So they basically clip on with the sort of semicircle going against the shaft of the injector. And then I believe they go on, yeah, there you go. So they go on basically like that. So we have to push that connector on. So basically, yeah, we just have to try and get these clips back into place. You can spin the injector around if you need to. There you go, that one's done. Basically stops these from pulling out, so yeah, just 5 more to go. Alright guys, so I just skipped ahead a little bit. We've got all 6 of the injectors connected up. The rail is bolted down. The little clips for clipping the injector to the rail are all on, and then the connectors to the wiring loom are all on with their own little clips. I did have a little bit of a hiccup when I got down to the end here because there wasn't actually a spare connector to hook up. I missed a connector, so basically cylinder 4's connector went onto 3, 5 went onto 4, and then 6 went onto 5, and then I didn't have one left. So I had a bit of a look like what the hell was going on, and I found the spare connector down there, so I had to go back, fix it all up. So we can basically reconnect our wiring loom. After we do that, we can probably go straight ahead, prime the pump and see what happens. Hopefully fuel doesn't spray out of everywhere. So without further ado, I think I can go and prime the ignition / pump. Make sure there's no fuel pissing out of anywhere. Here goes nothing. Right, I just primed the pump once. I cannot see any fuel coming out of anywhere. I'm going to do it a couple of times so the pressure is well and truly built up. So this engine can run without the intake piping, so I'm probably just going to go ahead and fire it up. Actually, you know what? Let's do it properly. Let's just dummy the intake piping in place. I won't bolt it down or anything, but let's just do that. So we can put that back on as well. Wow, that was quick. Holy shit. I reckon I've just fixed my problem because this car's cold. It hasn't run all day, or pretty much this car hasn't run all week. So this is definitely cold starts. It's never started like this before. Holy shit. I think I've finally fixed it. Let's go one more time. Primed. Oh, wow. You beauty. I guess the last thing to do is to take this car out on the road, and we'll see how she drives. You know, hopefully we've picked up a bit of power. But holy shit, this thing, it's never started this good. Holy crap. Wow. It is stumbling a little bit, So what I'll probably have to do as well is, if you missed my previous video, I showed you how to reset the base idle on these engines. You basically have to disconnect the idle speed controller by taking off this connector. You can then adjust this screw for to get the engine idling at approximately 700 RPM. Ford officially say 680 to 720, so I try and aim for roughly 700. Once you've got it at that speed, you can then reconnect that and then the ECU takes over. So yeah, what we'll do, we'll take the car out for a run, see how she goes. Once it's up to operating temperature, that's when you can do this calibration / check. But I'm really excited, guys. I think we've finally fixed the starting problem this car has had for the last 2 years almost. I bought it in, I think it was June or July 2019. It's now late March 2021, so I've been persevering with it. At the start, when I first bought it, it would start on the first crank, but it would just crank for quite a long time before it went. And then probably from 3 or 4 months ago, you would often need to stop cranking and then go a second time. And then it would cough to life after an extended amount of time. So perhaps those injectors were just gumming up a little bit more over time. I did run some injector cleaner through this car, but I don't really think that stuff works to a degree. Maybe it does on fuel systems which are not as dirty as what perhaps this was. But yeah, it's kind of a stopgap measure. I think you either need to get your injectors cleaned or replace them, especially when you're talking about a car that's 20 years old. So yeah, that's really exciting. I am thrilled. It's looking very encouraging. I'll get this all bolted up, reinstalled, and I'll see you out on the road. All right, so we're out on the road in the AU Fairmont Ghia. And I tell you what, the new set of injectors have totally transformed the way this car drives. It's nothing crazy, like I don't think it's got any more power up high, but it's pretty much at the low RPMs, you know, the really minor sort of throttle openings. It just feels a lot more smoother and a bit stronger too. You know, sometimes in the past when you're just accelerating gently, this car would sort of hesitate a little bit and it would sort of just feel a little bit doughy. But now, with the new injectors, it just feels strong. Yeah, every time you put your foot down, you know, I'm putting barely any throttle on this thing at the moment. It just feels like it's got power there ready to go. So if I did another 0 to 100 time, I did 8.8 seconds the other time I attempted it. I reckon it might be a little bit quicker. It's probably not a lot in it really when it comes to, you know, outright power, but it's just that sort of low end, low speed drivability that I think has really made a huge difference. Now, if I have to be honest with you guys, I kind of fucked up. And what do I mean by that? Well, those cheap injectors I bought off eBay, even though they did appear to work really well when I started the car up the first couple of times, after the car was running for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, it developed a really horrible misfire. And I had to do a bit of investigation, and I found out that the spark plug in cylinder 1 and cylinder 6 were both really heavily sooted. They were just black, you know, the tips of them. And that's a sign that those cylinders are running rich. So what I did is I sort of shuffled the injectors around a bit. I put cylinder 6 injector onto 1, and then I moved the other 5 up a bit. So the 2 suspicious injectors were on cylinders 1 and 2 then. And I ran the car again, misfired again, and I pulled the plugs. No surprises, but cylinder 1 and 2's plug at that time were heavily sooted. I'd cleaned them all up previously, and yeah, the plugs on 1 and 2 were sooted really heavily again. So it appears that my El Cheapo set of eBay no-name injectors were possibly not flow matched at all. The other 4 seemed to be burning fine, the plugs were clean, but yeah, it seems that 2 of them may have been over-fueling the 2 cylinders that they were installed into. So yeah, if I wanted to be dodgy, I could just totally omit that fact and say, hey, it was a roaring success. It only cost me $100 winning, you know? But sadly, that's not the case. So what I had to do, I love this car, so I decided I need to spend a bit of money to fix this. And I went down to Repco and I bought a set of 6 Bosch fuel injectors. They're the 19-pound injectors, which is 220cc. That's what Ford specified, that's what the car needed. And throw them in, surprise, surprise, it's running fantastically. Yes, so look, Bosch injectors, you're paying a premium for a premium product. I paid, I think it was about $60 per injector. So really, for the price of a full set of eBay injectors, the no-name ones, really that's the same price as just 2 of the Bosch fuel injectors. So yeah, so it did cost me a bit to fix the problem. And look, that's kind of how it goes with cars sometimes. You know, you think you're doing the right thing, but you might be taking a step backwards, and then you have to then pay some money to take 2 steps forward again. So look, I laugh, but look, we're all living and learning. There would have been a few of you, I think, when I announced that I bought a set of injectors off eBay for $100. Yeah, and you've probably been through this before. So yeah, look, it's a bit of a frustrating thing, but at least the car is running really well now, even though it did cost me a bit of money to get it to this stage. With the existing injectors that were in this car, they were Bosch branded as well. So if I had my time again, and if I had a bit of spare time up my sleeve, I probably would have just ripped those injectors out. And because of the high price of the replacement injectors, it would have actually been worthwhile to get them cleaned up professionally in an ultrasonic bath and things like that. Just because of the high price of the replacement injectors. I'm replacing like for like, essentially. It was just an old set replacing it with a new set. So yeah, if you wanted to save your money and you do have the official, or genuine, I should say, Bosch injectors in your AU Falcon, definitely take them out, get someone to clean them, because they are a valuable commodity, I guess. They do cost a lot of money to buy. So yeah, definitely, rather than pulling them out and replacing them with an unknown quantity, of course you can, like I did, if you want to pay the money, but yeah, look, if you're counting your money, you're counting your dollars, do get the existing ones cleaned if they are genuine Bosch, because they are a quality product. It was really interesting as well to feel them in my hand, the weight of the genuine one versus the weight of the no-name, because the Bosch ones were a lot heavier. So even that just tells you there must be, you know, more quality parts internally on those things. You can't take them apart very easily, but yeah, there's definitely a difference in quality and in weight, and that's evident here when you feel just how well the car's performing. So let's go see how she goes. So from here in the car, that 0 to 100 run felt about the same, just from the seat of my pants. I don't know the official time because I have to check the footage to calculate that. But look, I reckon it's about the same. The car sort of performed about the same. It revved out about the same before it shifted to second. So yeah, that wasn't really the goal for this video though. It really wasn't trying to get more power. It was just trying to get the car running right. So we have succeeded with that. It wasn't as easy as I suspected. A cheap set of injectors was not the solution in the end. But yeah, you get what you pay for, I guess. The genuine Bosch ones were a lot more expensive, so if your existing ones look like they can be salvaged and cleaned, definitely get them cleaned, because you'll save yourself a shit ton of money. So that's it, guys. We're done. The car's running nicely. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. It wasn't as straightforward as I imagined. The job itself is easy, but it definitely pays to have quality parts. Don't skimp if you care about your car anyway. And yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I really hope you enjoyed it. And make sure you subscribe to the channel. Throw me some support. I really appreciate it. Check out some of the other videos I've got here on the side. And hopefully, I'll see you next time.